I want you to close your eyes for a second. Seriously, just for a moment. I want you to picture an iceberg, but not, the kind you see in nature documentaries, majestic, white, floating in a pristine blue ocean. No, I want you to picture a dirty, jagged mountain of frozen methane and water covered in this black space dust, a dirty snowball, cosmically speaking.
That's an ugly thing.
Yeah.
It is just raw geology ripped right out of the back.
Exactly. Now imagine strapping a high-tech metal canister, a habitat module, to the back of that dirty snowball. Inside that canister, you pack 7 human beings, you seal the door, and then you accelerate that snowball to 99% of the speed of light.
Which is a velocity that.
Yeah.
I mean, it effectively breaks the universe as we understand it intuitively. At that speed, you aren't just moving through space, you're shearing through time.
Right. And the people inside that box, they're leaving everything they know. By the time they even reach their destination, everyone they ever loved back on Earth will be dead or, ancient. They're ghosts in a machine just hurtling into the dark.
And let's not forget the roommates. They aren't alone in there.
No, they're not. They are sharing that canister with 2 aliens that look like potatoes with legs and smell like expired tuna. This isn't Star Trek, is it? There are no clean uniforms and utopian ideals here.
Oh, far from it. This is Starbound by Joe Haldeman. And the mission isn't exploration in the romantic sense. It's a desperate, terrifying attempt to shake hands with a godlike enemy that has already tried to wipe humanity out once.
It creates this fascinating, almost suffocating premise right from the very start. You have the ultimate claustrophobia, right? But it's combined with the ultimate agoraphobia, the vastness of interstellar space against the tiny, sweating confines of a manufactured social experiment.
That's the perfect way to frame it. What strikes me about Haldeman's work here, looking at the source text, is that while the backdrop is this high-stakes, interstellar diplomacy mission, the real story is sociological. It's about forced family dynamics. You have a crew that didn't choose each other, trapped in a tin can, trying to figure out how to survive not just the aliens waiting at the finish line, but each other.
And the aliens on the ship, which we will get to, because that is a whole other level of awkward roommate drama. But before we get to the who, we have to understand the why. Why are they leaving? Why are they strapped to an iceberg? And why is this a one-way ticket for pretty much all of them?
To understand the mission of the Ad Astra, we have to look at the state of Earth and Mars in this timeline. And, well, it's not a pretty picture. The Earth these characters are leaving behind is a scarred planet. It's traumatized. And to understand the crew, specifically a man named Namir Zahari, we have to talk about Gehenna.
Okay, let's unpack this. The source material uses that specific word, Gehenna. It's a biblical reference, right? A very heavy one.
It is. It refers to the Valley of Hinnom, a place associated with, slaughter and fire, a literal hell on Earth. And in the context of this timeline, the name fits perfectly.
Now, usually when we hear about future wars in sci-fi, it's laser beams and robots. But Gehenna was something much, much more insidious. It wasn't an explosion, at least not at first. It was patience.
That's the terrifying part. The sources detail a coordinated assault on Israel using nanomachines. Someone, and to the timeline of the book, they never found out who seeded the water supply of Tel Aviv and Haifa with these microscopic machines.
Nanomachines in the water, that is just pure nightmare fuel.
It gets worse, because the nanomachines were only half the weapon. They were a binary weapon component. They remained dormant in the bodies of anyone who drank the water, showered in it, made coffee with it. They anchored themselves in the host's bodies and just waited.
For how long?
A full year. Imagine the psychological violation of that. You're walking around, living your life, carrying your own death sentence inside you, and you are completely unaware.
And then the trigger is pulled.
Exactly. A year later, car bombs were set off in the cities. But the blast wasn't the point. They released a second agent, an aerosol poison. As soon as you breathed it in, it signaled the machines in your blood to activate. When the two combined, it was instant death. The source mentions that 70% of the population died in minutes. Just gone.
And this is where we meet Namir Zahari. He's going to be the ship's diplomat and, weirdly enough, the cook. But his background is pure survival. He was a Mossad agent. He walked through the streets of Tel Aviv, stepping over bodies.
He witnessed the immediate aftermath. The source text describes him seeing people who had just fallen from balconies, cars crashing into walls because the drivers died mid-turn. He saw a bustling modern city turned into a graveyard in the span of a single breath.
That experience has to break a person, or at least fundamentally change how they view the world.
It defines what the book calls the hard callus on his soul. Namir represents the hard choice. He's a man who has seen the absolute worst humanity can do to itself. So he's fatalistic. He doesn't expect to survive this space mission. And strangely, that makes him the most stable person on the ship. He has already seen the end of the world once. A second time doesn't scare him as much.
So you have a traumatized Earth, then you have Mars. And Mars is where the weirdness really starts to ramp up. In this world, humans have colonized Mars, living in these bubbles under the surface. But they weren't the first ones there.
No. They discovered indigenous Martians. But indigenous is a tricky word here because the logs reveal that the Martians were actually bioengineered. They were placed there thousands of years ago by a superior race called the Others.
The Others. It sounds ominous, and frankly it is. The Martians were basically a biological surveillance system, right? Like a baby monitor left on for 20,000 years.
Precisely. The Martians, specifically a group they called the Yellow Family, we'll get into the color coding later, held a genetic eidetic memory code. It was dormant. But when humans got advanced enough, specifically when we started poking around the solar system and making noise, a signal was sent from Triton, a moon of Neptune. That signal unlocked the message in the Martians' heads.
And the message wasn't "welcome to the neighborhood."
Far from it. The message revealed the existence of the Others, a silicon-nitrogen-based life form living on Triton. And then things got violent. Another, residing on Triton, demonstrated what the sources call unlimited power. It vaporized the moon.
Just vaporized it. Gone. A celestial body wiped right off the map.
And then it fled the solar system, heading for a star called Wolf 25. But before it left, it tried to sterilize Earth. It turned a Martian leader named Red into a living time bomb. It was only thwarted because Red, along with a human pilot named Paul Collins, flew to the far side of the moon and let the explosion happen there.
So humanity is terrified. We have a godlike enemy that can blow up moons and turn people into bombs, and they're 24 light years away at Wolf 25. So Earth decides to send a ship, the Ad Astra.
It's a mission born of pure desperation. The objective is to contact the Others, to say, we're here, we're peaceful, please don't kill us. But everyone on board knows the stakes. The Others have already tried to wipe us out. This is likely a suicide mission.
And there's another layer to this suicide mission. Even if they survive, they can't come back. At least not to Earth. We need to talk about the quarantine.
This is a fascinating sociological wrinkle. The source material explains that anyone exposed to Mars is considered a typhoid Mary.
Because of Carmen Dula, the Mars girl.
Right. Carmen Dula was the first human to contact the Martians. She contracted a Martian sickness. And it wasn't really a sickness. It was a biological reboot, a cleaning phase that Martians go through. But she passed it to other humans. It terrified Earth. So strict rules were put in place. If you go to Mars, you stay in the Mars system. You can never breathe Earth air again.
So this crew is effectively dead to Earth before they even launch. They're exiles. Okay, so let's look at who signed up for this one-way road trip. We have 7 humans. And the source material breaks them down into these interesting groups. First, you have the civilian couple.
That would be Carmen Dula and Paul Collins. Carmen is a fascinating figure because she views herself as the lucky chicken.
I love that analogy, but I also find it deeply sad. Can you explain that concept for us?
It's a classic example of what statisticians call survivorship bias. She explains it in the logs. If you drop 100 eggs from a roof and one doesn't break, that egg isn't special. It's not magic. It's just statistically lucky. But if you hatch it, you get a lucky chicken. That chicken might grow up thinking it's immortal or blessed or chosen.
But it's just probability.
Exactly. Carmen thinks she's just a person who keeps surviving purely by chance. She survived the Mars sickness, she survived the political fallout, but she feels like an imposter. She isn't a scientist, she isn't a soldier, she's just the face of the mission. She is a reluctant celebrity.
And she's married to Paul Collins, the pilot. He's the guy who helped save Earth from the Triton explosion. He's calm, competent, but deeply cynical.
His cynicism balances her luck. He doesn't believe in magic or talismans. He looks at the math, he looks at the antimatter engine, and he sees 1,000 ways this can go wrong. He does not think they're coming back.
Then you have the spies, or the military triad. And here's where it gets really interesting. Sexual politics in deep space. The mission planners chose a triune marriage, 3 people married to each other, to balance the social dynamic.
It makes a certain mathematical sense based on game theory. You have 2 couples, right? Carmen and Paul, plus the xenologists who eventually pair off. So you need a group of 3 to prevent a 2 vs 2 vs 2 deadlock, or just to stabilize the odd numbers. This triad consists of Namira Zahari, whom we mentioned, the Mossad agent. Then there's Elza Guadalupe, the doctor, and Dustin Beckner, the philosopher.
Wait, a philosopher spy? That sounds like a contradiction in terms.
Not necessarily. I mean, intelligence work is often about analysis and understanding human systems, motivations, and, yeah, ethics. Dustin holds a PhD in philosophy. He grew up in an anarchist commune, which is just a hilarious background for a military officer. He serves as the intellectual bridge. He questions the why, while the others are focused on the how.
But Elsa is the firecracker.
The sources describe her as the sexual aggressor of the group. She seems to be collecting experiences. She's pragmatic and very sharp-tongued. She's the doctor, so she holds power over their bodies, but she also pursues her own desires aggressively.
And there's tension right off the bat between these groups. Carmen and Paul, the civilians, are paranoid. They suspect the spies have secret orders.
Which is a completely rational fear. If the mission goes south, or if the crew tries to surrender to the aliens in a way that endangers Earth, will Namir and his team kill everyone to prevent it?
I mean, Namir is carrying a 10.5mm Glock on a spaceship. You don't bring a gun to a diplomatic mission unless you plan on shooting someone.
Exactly. It creates this layer of distrust that underlies every single interaction. You're stuck in a box with people who might be your executioners.
Rounding out the humans, we have the xenologists, Moonboy and Meryl. And Moonboy seems, well, fragile.
He is. It's actually really tragic. Elsa finds his medical history, and as a child, he was abused by a stepfather, literally taped up and locked in a closet for hours at a time. This gave him severe claustrophobia.
Which is unbelievably ironic, considering he is now locked in a starship for the rest of his life.
It's a cruel irony. It raises the question of why he was selected in the first place. Perhaps his brilliance as a xenologist just outweighed the psychological risk.
Yeah.
Or perhaps the selection committee just didn't care.
And then Meryl. Meryl is a frustrated scientist. Her entire life's work was cetacean communication talking to whales. But there are no whales in space.
She's a specialist without a subject, so she's trying to pivot to learning the Martian language, but you can tell she feels useless. And that's a dangerous emotion in a high-pressure environment like this.
So that's the humans. A traumatized spy, a cynical pilot, a lucky chicken, a claustrophobe, a whale watcher, a philosopher, and a doctor with a high libido. What a crew. But they aren't alone. We have to talk about the aliens on the bus. Snowbird and Flying Amber.
The Martians.
Yeah.
This is where Haldeman's world building really shines in the source text. These are not humanoid aliens with bumps on their foreheads. They have 4 legs, potato-like heads, eyes that see in infrared, and they smell like tuna.
Tuna. I can't imagine being stuck in a recycled ventilation system with that smell for 20 years.
You'd get used to it, I suppose. Olfactory fatigue is a real thing. But the physical differences create real, tangible problems on the ship. The Ad Astra accelerates at 1G Earth gravity.
Which is great for the humans. Keeps their bones from turning to jelly.
Exactly. But Martians evolved for Mars gravity, which is about, 38% of Earth?
So imagine you weigh 150 pounds on Mars. Suddenly on the ship, you feel like you weigh 400 pounds.
Every step is a squat. Every time you lift your arm, it feels like you're curling a dumbbell. They are in constant physical misery. They drag their heavy bodies around. The logs describe them wheezing, their limbs trembling. It's not just uncomfortable, it's utterly exhausting.
And this leads to the swimming pool incident. This was a great scene in the logs because it blends humor with that biological reality.
Right. Fly Amber, the Martian, decides he needs relief from the crushing weight.
Mm-hmm.
He sees the human swimming pool buoyancy, right? Weightlessness. So he just jumps in. Naked.
Which causes a massive panic. Carmen sees oil and skin flakes floating in the water, and she freaks out, thinking it's a plague. Remember, she already caught a disease from them once. She thinks she's seeing the sickness all over again.
But it turns out Martians are just flaky.
It is. They don't have skin diseases. They just shed when they scrape themselves clean. It was a complete cultural and biological misunderstanding. But it highlights the gap, doesn't it? What is relief for the alien is biological terror for the human. And that gap extends to their minds, too. We have 2 different families of Martians represented here.
Right. Flying Amber is from the Yellow family. They are the recorders. They have eidetic memory. They cannot lie.
Cannot lie, like physically incapable.
Physically, biologically incapable of stating a falsehood. But, and this is a key distinction, they can withhold truth. They can choose what to record and what to ignore. They are fatalistic observers. They function almost like biological hard drives.
Then you have Snowbird from the White family.
The logicians. They are curious. They question tradition. The interaction between them is really funny. The Yellow Martians find human behavior baffling, but the White Martians are fascinated by it. They're always asking questions.
And the humor. The logs mention that Martians find human suffering hilarious.
Well, Not suffering in a sadistic way, it's more abstract. Their concept of humor is based on helplessness, fate, and irony. They live in a harsh environment where things just happen. So when they see humans struggling against fate like Carmen trying to control her destiny despite being a self-proclaimed lucky chicken, it resonates with them as high comedy.
And sex. They think human sex is the funniest thing in the universe.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's so secretive and inefficient. Martian reproduction is described as a wrestling match. It's a group activity, messy, competitive, out in the open. They see humans sneaking off into bedrooms, locking doors, having all this emotional angst about who sleeps with whom. To a Martian, that is slapstick comedy. It's like watching people perform a complicated secret dance just to shake hands.
It's the ultimate reality TV show for them. Speaking of sex and angst, let's talk about life on the iceberg. Because most of the source material covers the launch and the early voyage, they're settling into a routine. What does domestic life actually look like on a comet moving at light speed?
It's a really interesting mix of high-tech maintenance and, rustic survivalism. The ship, the Ad Astra, is essentially a habitat module stuck to a dirty snowball. They're using the ice for reaction mass.
I want to dig into that dirty snowball concept a bit more. How does that actually work? It seems so primitive.
It's actually ingenious. Instead of carrying a massive tank of fuel, which has its own mass and limits, you attach your engine to a comet. You mine the ice methane, water, ammonia, and you feed it into the engine. The engine, which is this magic Martian energy source, converts it into plasma and shoots it out the back for thrust.
But the iceberg also acts as a shield, right? That's a huge part of it.
Oh, it's a crucial point.
Yeah.
At 99% light speed, even a speck of dust hitting the ship would impact with the force of a bomb. So the iceberg sits in front of the habitat in the direction of travel. It takes the hits, it absorbs the cosmic bust and the tiny bits of debris.
So they're hiding behind a slowly melting wall of ice. That's vaguely comforting.
And because the iceberg is dirty covered in what they call snert, which is snow and dirt, it's not this pristine white environment. And inside, they are desperately trying to recreate Earth comforts. Food is a huge deal.
It always is in isolation, isn't it? They start out eating this recycled paste from Little Mars, which is the quarantine satellite. But Namir, our spy chef, takes over the kitchen.
I love that the lethal Mossad agent is the one making spaghetti. It grounds him. The sources describe him making meatless meatballs and reconstituted wine. It's about maintaining a semblance of culture, of ritual.
And he builds a balalaika.
Yes, a Russian string instrument. He builds it from scratch using the ship's machine shop.
Yeah.
He measures it from an old photo of himself playing one as a child. That level of dedication to a hobby, it shows how desperate they are to hold on to their humanity. It's not just about passing time. It's about proving they are still people, not just components of a ship.
And their sanity depends on these hobbies. Dustin plays cool billiards, but he has to relearn the physics of it because the gravity isn't real gravity, it's artificial acceleration. The balls behave differently.
And Carmen and Paul use VR helmets to cycle through Earth landscapes. And it's so poignant because they can never go back. They're walking through a virtual Paris or a virtual New York that might not even exist anymore by the time they stop moving, and is certainly forbidden to them because of the quarantine. They are ghosts haunting a digital graveyard.
But not everyone is just, playing the balalaika and looking at VR. We have to talk about the first interstellar adultery.
Elsa and Moonboy.
Right. Elsa is part of the military triad. She's married to Namir and Dustin. But she starts sleeping with Moonboy, the fragile xenologist.
It creates a ripple in the social fabric. But what's fascinating is Namir's reaction, or, his lack of reaction. He is unbothered. He views it with that diplomat's detachment. He sees the triune marriage as a stable block.
Yeah.
A political alliance and these external affairs as just recreation, a way to blow off steam.
But there's tension there. Namir admits he's attracted to Carmen, the Mars girl, and Carmen is clearly fascinated by Namir. There's this voyeuristic element to the ship. The logs talk about Namir and Carmen swimming together, the lack of privacy. You get the sense that eventually everyone is going to sleep with everyone, just out of boredom and proximity.
It's the social experiment aspect in its rawest form. You have the military personnel who are actually the most cultured Namir with his cooking and poetry, Dustin with his philosophy, and then you have the civilians like Moonboy who are neurotic and fragile. The roles are flipped. The soldiers are the stabilizers, while the scientists are the ones falling apart.
Until the crisis hits. And this is where the plot really, really thickens in the logs we have. The silence protocol.
The ship is under strict orders not to communicate with Earth. The logic is strategic. If you broadcast a powerful signal, the others might hear it and blow you up before you even get there. So they're running silent.
But Earth isn't staying silent. A high-powered laser signal pierces the silence, and it's from a guy named Laszlo Motkin.
This is such a bizarre and terrifying turn. Laszlo Motkin is a televangelist who claims to be the newly elected president of the world, or at least the leader of a free America theocracy.
But we don't know if he's telling the truth, right? He could just be a lunatic who got his hands on a powerful transmitter.
Exactly. The news feeds from Earth are censored and fragmented. But his message is chilling. He praises the crew as heroes. But then he gives them an order. He wants them to accelerate continuously. He doesn't want them to slow down to talk to the aliens.
He wants them to ram the planet.
It's the relativistic kill vehicle concept. It's a real physics idea.
Break that down for us, because usually when we think of ramming a ship into a planet, we think of, a plane crash or a car crash. This is different.
Completely different. Kinetic energy increases exponentially with velocity.
Yeah.
As you approach the speed of light, your mass effectively increases. At 99% of the speed of light, that dirty snowball they're attached to isn't just a rock anymore. It possesses energy roughly equivalent to its own mass and antimatter.
So if they hit the Wolf 25 planet,
They don't just make a crater. They crack the crust. They boil the atmosphere off. The source suggests an impact force 10,000 times greater than the meteor that killed the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
It is an extinction-level event delivered by express mail.
it is a planet killer shot. He wants them to be a bullet.
A suicide bullet.
And this just brings all that paranoia bubbling right to the surface. Carmen and Paul look at the spies, Namir, Elsa, Dustin, and they think, is this it? Is this the secret mission? Was this the plan all along?
It's the ultimate prisoner's dilemma. If the military crew has secret orders to destroy the alien homeworld, does Motkin's message confirm it? Are they going to hijack the ship?
And if you're Nomir, even if you don't have those orders, how do you prove it? How do you prove a negative?
You can't. Distrust is a one-way street. Once it's there, everything you do, everything you say looks suspicious.
The crew debates it. They decide to send a message back to verify Motkin's authority. They reject the suicide pact, at least for now. But the seed of distrust is planted deep. They're flying into the dark, and they don't know if the order to die is coming from the aliens ahead of them or the humans behind them.
And that is the crux of the drama. It's not just human versus alien. It's human versus human nature.
Okay, let's unpack the themes here, because there is so much going on just beneath the surface of this story. One big theme is the nature of truth and memory.
You see that so clearly in the contrast between the Martians and the humans. The Yellow family, Fly and Amber, cannot lie. They physically cannot do it. But they can withhold truth. They can choose what to record, what to share.
Versus the spies, who lie for a living. That's their entire job description.
Exactly. But on the ship, the spies are actually the most honest about the danger. Namir is the one saying, "We are probably going to die." He isn't sugarcoating it. The civilians, like Carmen, are hiding behind these comfy metaphors like the lucky chicken.
And Dustin, the philosopher, just tears that metaphor apart, doesn't he? He points out that luck is just a statistical retrospective. You're only lucky until the moment you aren't.
It's a brutal takedown of hope, but it's necessary. They have to strip away the illusions to survive. They need to live in the cold, hard, mathematical reality of their situation.
Another major theme here has to be the sociology of isolation. How do 7 humans and 2 aliens function as a society?
It's a microcosm, isn't it? The triune marriage acts as a government of sorts. It's a voting bloc. It stabilizes the potential chaos of the couples. And the aliens. They're the ultimate outsiders, but they force the humans to define what it means to be human. When Fly and Amber asks about love or adultery, he forces Namir to articulate things that humans usually leave unspoken.
And finally, the shadow of Gehenna, the trauma of Earth that hangs over everything.
It all comes back to Namir. Why is he the central anchor of the human crew? Because he has already seen the apocalypse. He knows that civilization is fragile. He represents the capacity to make the hard choice. If it comes down to it, if they really do have to choose between the aliens and humanity, Namir is the only one who has the psychological callus to pull the trigger on an entire world.
That's a chilling thought. He's the cook making spaghetti, but he's also the executioner in waiting.
That is the duality of man, isn't it? We create art, we cook, we love, and we destroy. The Ad Astra carries all of that potential to Wolf 25.
So what does this all mean for us? Why should we care about a fictional crew on a dirty iceberg?
Because in a way, we're all on that iceberg. We're all hurtling through time, stuck on this planet with people we didn't choose, facing these huge, uncertain futures. The way they handle their isolation, their fear, and their relationships. It's a mirror for how we handle ours.
And it raises the big question. If you were on that ship, and you got the order to become a bullet, to wipe out a civilization, to save your own, would you do it? Would you trust the voice on the radio? Or would you try to talk to the monsters?
That is the question. And I don't think any of us know the answer until we're staring out at the stars.
We're going to leave you with that thought. This has been a deep dive into Starbound. Just remember, we are only at the beginning of the journey. Keep looking up.
And watch out for the snert.
See you next time.